we're not going to go back-to-back days without making Aaron Rodgers a main topic of discussion on the show because we got some interesting information. We got a few tweets, we got a few quotes from reporters regarding the Steelers and Rodgers situation that I wanted to sift through. And then I also there was a thing or two I missed about the Steelers' additional comp picks that they're getting from some of the ex-Steelers that recently signed that I wanted to hit on midway through today's show. And then finally, let's talk this draft and specifically the quarterbacks, because it looks like whether or not the Steelers bring in Rodgers, they're definitely interested in picking a guy early on, maybe even in the first round. A guy like Jalen Milroe, a guy like Jackson Dart. So we're gonna talk about this year's quarterback class and if it would be smart for the Steelers to take one of these guys to potentially be our future franchise quarterback. But first, Aaron Rodgers, the man of the hour, the man of the last couple weeks, the man of the month. Yeah, we're all waiting on him. I'm getting sick of saying that, actually. I'm getting sick of, that's just like the go-to phrase right now with the Rodgers situation in limbo. Everyone's waiting on Rodgers. Who knows what Rodgers is going to do? It's the truth, but got to figure out how to say something else here in regards to Rodgers and the Steelers. But anyway, we did get some information from some big name people: Schefter, Pelissero, Justina Anderson. All that I found pretty interesting. Let's start off with Schefter. He went on I think it was a Wisconsin radio station, like the ESPN local station out there, and had this to say about Rodgers. And it's all right. I'll talk about it after. I'll react to it after. Let's get to the quote first. I think that, first of all, they both need each other right now in regards to Rodgers and the Steelers, frankly. And that's if Aaron wants to play, which I'm not convinced yet that he does. Until I hear him say, I want to play, then I could tell you people are asking that question about whether or not he wants to play. It's come up. I'm hearing he might not want to play, by the way, again, I don't want to speak for him because I don't want to get called out. We're speculating, but it shouldn't be that hard. Either you want to play for the Steelers or you don't. What are we waiting for? So people have taken this quote by Schefter and have ran with it and have said, like, Schefter thinks Rodgers could potentially retire. Schefter knows people within Rodgers' circle that thinks he may be really considering retiring. And what I have to say to that is, yeah, anyone could say that, because I feel like anyone with a brain or anyone with common sense at this point can see the further we get removed from free agency starting and the longer that time goes on, that Rodgers doesn't make a decision, knowing that it's literally between the Steelers and retirement at this point, that maybe he is legitimately thinking about retirement. Like, this Schefter report isn't some groundbreaking information that only Adam Schefter could get, that, he's connected with these people on the inside of Aaron Rodgers' circle and he's been hearing this. No, if you go off what he said here, like, I could tell you that. You could tell me that. I think, again, anyone with common sense could look at the situation and say, okay, it's between the Steelers and retirement for Rodgers. What's the holdup? What's taking him so long? Is he actually thinking about retirement? So that's all. That's all that is. It's not like this Adam Schefter insider report, Adam Schefter exclusive with Rodgers or anything like that. No, it's just he's speculating. The people on the radio show asked about Aaron Rodgers. He had to come up with something. He had to fill airtime, and this is what he came up with. He's not wrong. I think it was a smart way for him to answer it, because you can't be wrong in saying that. But it's not like this. I don't think this really says, at least coming from Schefter, Rodgers is leaning one way or another. I think just the situation playing out as it is could be making a statement on what Rodgers is thinking, but nothing really here from Schefter, I would say. If anything, we got two other reports from Tom Pelissero and Justina Anderson that are more positive in the direction of Rodgers ultimately deciding to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. So here's what Pelissero had to say on Jim Rome. It's a 1-year deal for Rodgers if he takes it with the Steelers. We've kind of known that. I didn't know. I still don't know how much leeway the Steelers would have in the contract negotiations with Rodgers, because there are some people saying that Rodgers could be looking for a 2-year deal, wants to establish something at least in the first year, and then just get a second year, just get a bigger sample size to prove that the Jets run was more of an outlier, and what he's capable of it in the late stage of his career versus, that is where he's at. Anyway, Aaron basically invited himself on a visit late last week. He was in the building for several hours. I mean, that's a big deal. Aaron basically invited himself on a visit late last week. Like, how did that go then? Wednesday, Thursday night, Rodgers calls up Mike Tomlin, maybe even Art Rooney, because I'm seeing some stuff that Art Rooney is heavily invested in this quarterback search this offseason. That, he was in the circle that was talking about trying to trade for Stafford. Didn't want to give up a first round pick ultimately to get him in here. But yeah, he's been a big part of this search. And what's crazy is going back to his initial comments once the offseason started about what quarterback he wanted to have on the roster for 2025. He mentioned at least one of the in-house guys, Russ and Fields. And obviously he didn't mean it that much, right? He didn't mean it that much, because look where we're at right now. Both of those guys are on different teams, and Aaron Rodgers is the last-ditch effort in terms of bringing in a big name, bringing in a splash move. Outside of that, it's Mason in the draft. But anyway, let's keep going on here. He watched tape with the coaches. I mean this. This deal has been in place contract-wise for weeks. They discussed parameters. This is not going to be a financial issue at all for Rodgers. If it gets done, it's going to be a one-year deal, and he's going to be in there and taking a shot at age 41 to show that he can muster one more miraculous run, not unlike Brett Favre did in 2009 when he ended up in Minnesota. This was a get-to-know-you type of meeting. Everything there sound positive. I can tell you that Aaron has kept up a dialogue with various members of the organization, coaches, and other players. There's been communication. Like, this is really something that he's going to do. And at this point, right now, sitting here late March, the Steelers are the only opportunity that Aaron has. Yeah, my big takeaway from this quote from Pelissero is that initial line there, Aaron basically invited himself on a visit late last week. Because obviously we're hearing that the Steelers really want Aaron Rodgers, right? That he's been a top priority ever since free agency started to play quarterback for them next season. But we didn't really know how set or how eager Rodgers has been throughout this whole process of being a Pittsburgh Steeler, given that it seemed like if the Vikings wanted Rodgers, he would have ultimately signed there. So Steelers may be, in Rodgers' book, his second option, maybe even at worst third option, depending on the 49ers and if he actually thought that was a real possibility of them trading Purdy and then bringing him on for a 1 or 2 year deal. But the fact that, again, he visited, like that says something in and of itself, that he came to Pittsburgh, he took time out of his schedule, visited 6 hours, went well. You had Tomlin, Arthur Smith, the Steelers brass there talking with him. So, like, there's clearly interest. There's always been interest, but we didn't know to what degree. But the fact that he invited himself, I think that says something too. I really do. It wasn't the Steelers saying, "Yo, let's," trying to court him necessarily. Obviously, they have been throughout this free agency period, but in terms of the visit, in terms of meeting face to face, this was Aaron Rodgers' idea. And then Josina Anderson, in terms of the offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, and the Rodgers report, she piggybacks off of what Dulac was saying in his report yesterday. Or 2 days ago. I guess we didn't talk Rodgers yesterday, but from 2 days ago, where Dulac said Arthur Smith is low-key potentially excited about working with Rodgers as opposed to the opposite. So here's what Josina had to say. I'm told that when Rodgers met with the Steelers brass and offensive coordinator Arthur Smith during Rodgers' visit, that the conversation was already beyond the pitch and really more about football. Smith and Rodgers watched film together and chatted about their thoughts. From Pittsburgh's viewpoint, I heard they walked away today feeling really good about the vibe of that meeting, per league source. Also interesting how Steelers brass pulled the Rodgers visit off so discreetly initially, calling a team meeting, and then parentheses, rounding everyone up and away that day. So there you go. Again, looks like this is happening. It's just, matter of when, not if. Like that, I think that's where we're. Like, this is gonna happen. But if Rodgers is actually thinking retirement, which again, going back to that Schefter report, and again, any of us just using common sense, it could be a possibility for Rodgers. The further this gets removed from free agency starting, and the more this goes on, and Rodgers hasn't made a decision, knowing that the only two options are Steelers and walking away, maybe he's thinking about the option that's not wearing a jersey in the black and gold. Maybe it's something he's really considering. Even though I think we all know he wants to play. Is he waiting out for another option to pop up? He's not going to get another option to pop up until training camp or the season starts and an injury happens. I think it would be foolish to wait that long. So it really is Steelers are bust at this point. But again, I wanted to get into those comp picks again because there's something from yesterday's show that I feel like I missed when I brought this topic up. Obviously, it's cool. We're getting the extra picks for next year's draft with some of these ex-Steelers leaving recently and signing new deals like Dan Moore going to the Titans, Fields going to the Jets, Russell Wilson obviously just signed with the Giants. But to take this even a step further, I think it goes even deeper than just that. The more I thought about this after yesterday's show and going into today over the last like 24 hours, I'm like, man, it's actually crazy at how these transactions have taken place with these three players. James Daniels, I mean, that's honestly James Daniels. We would have liked to just have him back. If all went well with him, he doesn't tear his Achilles. He's one of the best guards in the league last year, and we re-sign him for another 2 or 3 year deal. So this one's kind of separate from Dan Moore, Fields, and Russell Wilson. Think about what it took to get those guys in the building. And then what the team got back after their departure. Dan Moore, 4 years ago, we drafted in the 4th round. Justin Fields, last offseason, we traded a 6th-round pick for. Russell Wilson, we didn't have to give up any assets. All we had to do was sign him for the vet minimum. That's it. $1 million something bucks last year. And in all these cases, you had guys that legitimately contributed to the team to the extent that we would have liked. That's a different story. That's obviously why these three guys aren't on the team anymore. But Dan Moore was a 4-year starting left tackle for us. A guy that we drafted in the 4th round. Fields last year went 4-2 as the starter when Russ was out for those first 6 weeks because of the calf injury. And then Russ was our starting quarterback for the second half of last season. We know how it ended, but there were some highs. There were some good moments there. He showed that he was still a competent starting quarterback in the NFL at least. And all we did was sign him for $1 million. So it's pretty insane when you're talking about bang for your buck in these 3 cases here. Dan Moore, we drafted in the 4th round. He goes through 4 seasons as the Steelers starting left tackle. I think did solid for us. Obviously, there's a reason we didn't re-sign him, but we get a 3rd-round pick back for Dan Moore. We got a better pick back for Dan Moore than what we initially gave up to get him. And that was the 4th-round pick in 2021. Justin Fields, we traded a 6th-round pick for him. We're going to be getting a 4th-round pick in return by letting him walk. And then Russell Wilson didn't give up any assets. We're going to be getting at least a 5th-round pick as a compensatory pick for him that could be a 3rd-round pick depending on what he does with the Giants. It's kind of insane when you really spell it out like that. We're getting more in return for these players than what we gave up to initially get them in-house. Now, I'll say this. The caveat is I don't know how much credit we should get for how all these transactions played out. Like, I don't think we were some mastermind from the start of all this. And we were like, oh, man, we're gonna draft Dan Moore in the 1st round or the 4th round. He's going to start for us, and we're going to get a 3rd-round pick back for him, and we're just going to let him walk. Same thing with, like, Fields and Russ. Oh, we're going to bring these guys on, and, you know, they're going to contribute, but we're going to let them walk, and then we're going to get better picks back. We're going to get better assets back than what we gave up to initially get them. I don't think that was the plan from the start with all this, because I think deep down the Steelers would prefer Dan Moore to be better than what he was, and ultimately he is our franchise left tackle, and we pay him a decent contract, and we end up not having to trade up in the draft a couple years ago to get Broderick Jones. I think that's how we really would have wanted Dan Moore's tenure here to play out, as opposed to getting a third-round pick for him as a compensatory pick, and he signs with the Titans for a big deal. And then same thing with Russ and Fields. I think we would have preferred to find an answer at the quarterback position between the two, as opposed to not having either of these guys back and having a sense of continuity at the quarterback position. But just the fact that we took on these low risk, high reward type of moves, I don't think should be discounted. I think this is kind of how Khan's been operating these last few seasons as the GM. I think it's a huge lesson in minimizing your downside, because with Russ and Fields, like those two moves, you're not giving up much for either guy, but there's a chance that they could be your franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future if everything panned out. We only signed Russ for $1 million, but that's Russell Wilson. So it's like, all right, maybe things didn't really jive in Denver. Things didn't really vibe all the way like they were supposed to in Denver. And he needs a change of scenery. And if we could get the offense back to how he was operating in Seattle, maybe we get a vintage Russ. But, it didn't really play out fully here. But that's the thought process. You can understand the thought process. Low risk, high reward. Same thing with Fields. Former top 11 pick with the Bears, ultra talented. Bears, not the best franchises to be a quarterback for. Not the best franchises to try to develop and be a long-term quarterback. We've seen the Bears' history at that position. So, yeah, that's the thought process there. Maybe you get Fields to a new team with some better structure and see what he could do. Let him compete with Russ a little bit in the offseason, even though Russ had the pole position. But we're only giving up a 6th-round pick for him. It's not like we had a backup on the roster after we signed Russ and let Kenny go. So, smart move. And then we ultimately get picks back that are better than what we gave up initially. Kind of crazy. But like a lot of Omar deals have been like this. Maybe not to this degree, but just low risk, high reward, 1 or 2 year type of deals, like Juan Thornhill this year, Darius Slay this year. And it allows us to remain flexible with the entire roster, with the rest of the roster surrounding the quarterback, as we try to figure out that position ever since Ben retired. We don't have any like crippling contracts, massive dead cap or anything like that, but we got a bunch of these low risk, high reward type of moves that are helping us stay competitive. So like I think there's something to be said for that. Again, it's not working to the extent or the degree that we would like over these last few seasons. So like, I don't know how much, again, credit we should be getting for these compensatory picks and these low risk, high reward type of moves. Cause ultimately we want to be Super Bowl contenders again. I don't care about these compensatory picks or these value picks or, being savvy all the way like that with these offseason moves if it doesn't mean we're Super Bowl contenders, But yeah, I just wanted to delve into that a little bit more because it's another aspect that I didn't even think about yesterday. I was just very surface level with it. Whenever you look at, okay, we got these extra compensatory picks. We're in line to try to draft a franchise quarterback, whether it's this year or next year. I think this is good timing by Omar Khan. This is good timing by the Steelers organization to get this extra ammo, whether it's to build around the future quarterback or to trade up to get the guy that we want. And whether it's this year's draft or next year's draft, because can you trade? I don't know if you can trade compensatory picks right now. Do they have to be finalized before you can trade them? So I don't even know if we could use any of those picks for this year's draft to try to move up or anything. But yeah, just wanted to hit on that again before it gets, I guess, forgotten about, because I think Omar Khan, the Steelers do deserve credit on this front. And I wonder too if these compensatory picks, like low key, Khan and the Steelers knew that this was the range that Fields and some of these guys would be going for, and these would be the picks that we would get in return. I wonder if that's why we weren't that eager to bring back Russ or Fields. Go out of our way because we knew it's like Rodgers is still out there. We might be getting we be getting a 3rd round pick for Russ, a 4th round pick for Fields. We're not completely that set on them to begin with, and they want certain type of money that we're not willing to give them. I feel like that had to have been a part of the equation. I don't think we could put it past them. I mean, this is literally Omar Khan's job. This is the front office's job to know this type of stuff. I mean, we find it out a little bit after the fact. But, yeah, I got to give credit to Khan. I got to give credit to Khan and the front office for some of this stuff this offseason. Especially, too, if we get Rodgers. This team is looking good, man. It's looking good. We can have our complaints about the Steelers and the decisions we've made in the past and how this team has looked in the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But what were some of the things we were talking about this offseason that the Steelers needed to do? And it was change. And we didn't change the coaching staff. Tomlin didn't get fired, but we are making other legitimate type of moves, though, that indicate change. Trying to get an elite quarterback in here and Aaron Rodgers, or at least taking a chance on that he could return to being an elite quarterback. Like, I think the crux of it was at the quarterback position is like we can't run it back exactly how we did it last year. Like, that's the main thing. And we haven't. We can't run it back with the receivers that we had last year. And we're not. DK Metcalf trade. Najee Harris, at least from my perspective. I know a lot of people would have liked Najee back, but like to me, the Najee stuff ran its course too. It's like we can't run it back with our offense as Najee being the lead back. We know what that is. We've seen that story year in and year out, and it's capped. Didn't bring back Najee. Defense. Brought in a Darius Slay. Brought in a 3rd safety and Juan Thornhill. Former 2-time Super Bowl champion with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's our 3rd safety. Malik Harrison. We're talking about we need to stop the run. We need to get more solidified in that front 7. Malik Harrison. Versatile linebacker. Can play off ball, can play the edge. Good at stopping the run. So, like, we're making moves. We're trying. We're trying for change. We are. So I got to give credit where credit's due. Now, how does it all play out? That's what the season's for. That's why we watch the game. That's why you play the game. Last thing. Since we're talking compensatory picks, we're talking draft a little bit. I want to talk about this year's quarterback class a little bit more. Because the more I look at this quarterback class, the more I'm like, I'm good with the Steelers taking any one of these guys in the top 6 or 7, depending on where they go. You have Cam Ward, you have Shedeur Sanders. They're supposed to be going in the top 2. Worst case, maybe top 10. Now, I'm seeing some mock drafts having Shedeur Sanders slide all the way to us at 21. I think that would be an absolute steal. That would be a no-brainer move for the Steelers to make there. But, like, okay, most likely the Steelers aren't getting either one of those guys. But then you go to the next tier, a Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart. That's probably the next tier. Will Howard. I'd put Will Howard in that next tier. I'm a Will Howard guy. I saw what he did at Ohio State last year. Those last 4 games, college football play. You got to give credit where credit's due. The dude has a good arm, is mobile, 6'5", obviously clutch. I don't know what there's not to like about the dude. And it's not like he's just this college-style quarterback and has no upside for the pros. No, I think everything that I just mentioned about Will Howard screams he still has upside and potential. So I'd put Will Howard in that next tier. But then you also got Tyler Shuck, who I'm coming around on. Quinn Ewers wouldn't be a bad, like, mid-round pick. But I think those guys are kind of like next tier. Maybe Shuck could be in that Milroe, Dart, Will Howard tier. And then you got Quinn Ewers. Now, Kyle McCord, I just don't want to hear about Kyle McCord. Some people are trying to act like Kyle McCord should be a legitimate play in the 2nd or 3rd round. Get out of here. I saw him throw 5 picks against Pitt's defense last year, and Pitt's defense wasn't that good. So I'm out on Kyle McCord. I've even seen some of his tape. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't. Ohio State upgraded once they moved off of him. Win a championship when he's not their quarterback anymore. I'm not feeling it with Kyle McCord. Anyway, yeah, outside of McCord, really, those top, like, 6 or 7 options. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, yeah, I'd be completely fine with the Steelers taking. Are we taking either one of them? No. I mean, what it's going to take to get either guy. Now, again, if Shedeur falls, I think that could be a no-brainer pick. Cam Ward at 1, though, yeah, you're going to have to trade the house to get him. I think he is the best quarterback in this class. It would be dope to have him as the future, but it's just very unlikely. But I'd be good taking him. I'd be good taking Shador. And then that next tier, you start to get to the more realistic options. Dart, I've talked about him. I came around to him. I mean, the production's there for these last few seasons. He's got the arm strength. He's got the mobility. He's got that, athleticism that you're looking for out of these modern day quarterbacks. Played in a somewhat pro style at Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin as the play caller, as the guru of the offense. And then Jalen Milroe. The production was there with Alabama. Obviously, he needs to work on his accuracy, but like you know what you're drafting him for. Like, you're not drafting to be ready-made first year, rookie year. You're drafting him like, oh man, if this potential could get put together, the running ability and the arm strength, wow, look out. But he's still, like, that's the other thing though. Like, let's not discredit what he was still able to accomplish at Alabama. Last year in a so-called bad year, disappointing year, first year without Nick Saban, still had a ton of touchdowns. Still was electric. Had bad moments though. We do got to admit, had some bad moments. Still went 9-3. Still led the team to 9-3. Year before that, goes to the college football playoff. Played good after getting benched. That shows some fortitude right there as well. So Milroe, I wouldn't be opposed to taking him. Now I don't know. In terms of that next tier, I would say it's 1 Cam Ward, 2 Shador. Then the next tier, I would have. I think I would have Dart at 3. And then like Milroe, Howard, 4, 5. Dart would be cool late first round, kind of where we're slotted at right now at 21. Milroe, I'd be more good with taking like in the second. Like if we're talking about getting Milroe or Howard or a Shuck, I think we should trade out of that 21 pick and try to get them even later in the first and pick up another second round pick or another third round pick, since we don't have that one from the DK Metcalf trade anymore, and then end up taking them there, either late first or like early second. That's what I would try to do in that scenario. I'd be more good with taking Milroe, Shuck, or Howard late first. Most optimal would be in the second, early to mid second. But even with Shuck, man, like, dude, I'm seeing some of his throws, man. These tight window throws. The dude will stick around in the pocket and deliver darts. The big knock on him is the injuries, but these aren't injuries that should be popping up and reappearing with him, or it should be, I guess, nagging. They shouldn't be like things that, right, are affecting him as his NFL career goes on. This is like collarbone type of stuff, like broken bone type of stuff, not ACL, Achilles, and all that. I think it was just fluke type of stuff with Shuck, but he showed fortitude in his own right, powered through his college football career, bounced around all over these places, dealt with injury, and put together a pretty decent season at Louisville. Elevated them better than what that team probably should have been. He could slang it. Now, again, the downside is the age and all that stuff, but hey, I mean, 25, that doesn't mean you can't have a nice 10, 11, 12-year career. I mean, 25, I think he'll be 26 once the season starts. Like that, I mean, you still got a decade at least. So I like Shuck. And then Ewers, I would put him in like the third round category. I wouldn't be pumped about taking him in the second round, but third round, as a third rounder, and again, depending on, well, maybe it's not depending on Rodgers at this point. Because you could sell me, if you have Rodgers here, you could sell me on, and I've said this before, like part of me doesn't want to draft a quarterback if we have Rodgers, because I would just try to load up the team as best as possible. We're in win now mode. But the other side of me is like, why not do the opposite? Again, in terms of change and what the Steelers have been doing and trying to do different things and try to improve and try to learn from lessons in the past, maybe we should have a succession plan at the quarterback position where we invest in a high pick and have them learn under a Hall of Famer in Rodgers. Now, we kind of tried it with Mason, but yeah, like that. Yeah, we saw that one. It didn't really work out there. And part of that is due to Mason, because Mason did get an opportunity in his second year for a full season to show what he's got as a starting quarterback. And he disappointed, to say the least. So we kind of tried doing that with Mason, but not really. I mean, he was a third round pick. We said we had a first round grade on him, but it would be different for us to, let's say we get Rodgers, we got him locked in before the draft, and then we take a dart in the first, we get a Milrow, we get a Shuck or something in the second, and they get a year to learn behind Rodgers, and then depending on how next year goes, maybe Rodgers is back, they sit for another year, or they're the guy. They're ready to take the reins and run with it. It's kind of different than what we've been doing and how we've been operating. I think there is something to be said for that. I mean, Mahomes learned behind an Alex Smith. You could go down the line. The Packers did it a couple times. Jordan Love, Rodgers. This method can work out. Phillip Rivers, back in the Big Ben draft, he sat for a couple years behind Drew Brees, and then he had a borderline Hall of Fame career. Worked out with him that way. So yeah, I'm good with. I like this quarterback class. I think what I'm getting down to here, like depending on the position and where you take some of these quarterbacks, I would be good with it from a Steelers standpoint. Like I don't know if I'm just talking myself into it, or like I'm watching these dudes and I'm like, this quarterback class is actually, I think, better than what a lot of people are giving it credit for. I really am. Like those 6 or 7 guys, I could see the reasoning behind picking some of these dudes at certain spots. Now, if you're taking a tier 2 guy, trading up in the first round, if you're trading up for Dart or Shuck or Milrow, Howard, you're trading up in the first round into the top 10. That doesn't feel like you got good value there. But again, if you're getting Dart with that 21st pick, you could just chill and he falls to you, or if Shador falls to you, or if you could get Shuck, Milrow, Howard, you trade back out of the first, you get them in the early to mid second, and you get a pick as well. Like, all right, I could see that. I could see that. That makes sense to me. That makes 100% sense to me. So, yeah, I think this quarterback class is low-key kind of good. I think it is low-key kind of underrated. Like Quinn Ewers, if we're talking about him being a third-round pick, the dude produced at Texas. The dude was good. Now, yeah, does he have the best of arm strength? Does he look like the prototypical like prospect you would make in a lab? No, not really. But I mean, you even saw his one throw that popped up on Twitter. He threw like a 55-yard bomb at his pro day, and it was a duck. But then it's like, wait, that was a duck that was on the money, hit the receiver in stride. Doesn't look perfect. Like Ewers got this like, oh shucks attitude. He's just out there like, kind of gunslinging. But it works. Ewers was good at Texas. He was like legitimately a good quarterback. He was one of the best quarterbacks in college football these last couple of years. And again, it's not like he's this consistent choker in big moments. Like he's played good in the clutch as well. He almost reminds me, like weirdly enough, I know Eli Manning went number 1 overall out of Ole Miss back in the day, but Ewers might be like a day 2 pick, second, third round pick. He kind of reminds me of Eli Manning. I don't know. Like they both have very similar demeanor. They're just out there, and it just for some reason it works. It works. Like Eli Manning he doesn't look like he should be as good as what he was. Neither does Ewers at times, but it just works. So again, you could sell me on Ewers in the third round as a guy that, again, whether we have Rodgers or not, he could sit behind Mason, be QB3, chill for a year, learn behind Rodgers, and you see what happens the following year. Maybe Ewers Mason QB competition if Rodgers ain't back. But yeah, just wanted to hit on those 3 things. Latest Rodgers news, the compensatory picks, and then this quarterback class and where the Steelers are at. Because one of the other reasons I wanted to bring this up is because the Steelers are showing interest in all these guys. Go to Ohio State Pro Day, meet with Will Howard. They met with Quinn Ewers before his pro day. I think took him out for dinner before. Same thing with Jalen Milrow. Tyler Shuck, they've had in for a top 30 visit already. I'm trying to think, what other name am I missing here? And Jackson Dart, the connection's been there ever since the Senior Bowl and the Combine. The Steelers have reportedly had legit interest in Jackson Dart, maybe taking him in the first round. And now Sanders and Cam Ward. Again, I'm sure we'd be interested in them, but the likelihood of them being there at 21 or the likelihood of us trading the house to try to get either one of those 2 is very unlikely. But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. We do have legit interest. And it seems like whether or not Rodgers comes here or not, and I think that should be the approach. I think we could do right by not taking quarterback if Rodgers comes here. Now, if Rodgers doesn't come here, I think quarterback, we got to figure that out. Could you just rock with Mason though as the solo guy? Yeah, I guess you could technically, but we're gonna have to draft a quarterback. We're gonna have to get a guy in here to compete with Mason because anyone else that we sign that's out there in free agency wouldn't be a legit threat to compete with Mason. I don't think. I think it would just be a joke. So you'd want at least maybe a guy to come here. He could be your future, compete with Mason, and yeah, just invest in the position in somewhat of a proper way. But yeah, that's it. I'll be back next week, Tuesday, 6 p.m. We'll see if Rodgers is a Steeler by then. And until then, here we go, Steelers, and peace.